Hey, welcome to the Christian Media Marketing Show. My name is John. Thanks for spending some time with me today. I'm glad to be able to hopefully provide some information, maybe some encouragement to you as well as you labor for the Lord. It is always a joy to be able to hear from those of you who are using this information. I love hearing how God is working in your context. So if you can, reach out to us. Let us know what you're learning, what questions you have, how you see God using your social media or other types of outreach. We would love to celebrate with you. We just celebrated having over 20,000 different people listen to this podcast or watch the video show at some point. And I'm just grateful because my goal of this is that even if just one person can benefit, well, that's what I'm hoping for. To me, I'm a teacher, and so to share information and to see what it is that we can do for you and with you and in partnership with the Spirit, all of this is just it's so powerful to me. It drives me in what I do. It drives us as an organization at Kavanaugh Media, as a ministry to continue to serve the King and to serve you as well. And so, whether it be through our marketing newsletter, our weekly marketing roundup newsletter, where we bring together some of the highlights that we're seeing, articles, things like that, whether it be through training like this podcast and the video show, whether it even be some quarterly training that we're going to be doing here in the near future. So some webinars, things like that. Well, however it is and whatever it is, we're just glad to be able to do that and to serve the King and hopefully to be able to serve you. So if you know, or you've probably heard from me talk about on the show, if you know me or have heard me talking about it, I am also a just general aviation pilot. So I love aviation. I have always loved aviation and am actually working right now to get a specific type of rating that would allow me to do more specific types of things when I'm flying, specifically in areas where the weather is really, really bad. And so I love the whole history of aviation, of flight. I love being able to fly. Honestly, when I'm up in the air, I'm not thinking about work. So that's a great thing. But one of the key concepts of flying and of aviation is what I want to share with you about today. And that is the difference between being current and being proficient. In aviation, you can be current. In other words, you can have the required amount of something or have the rating for something or whatever. But proficiency means you're good at what it is. You know, not only know what's going on, but how to be able to do that. And a lot of times that just comes from experience, being able to do something over and over and over. So if you were to go fly with me and I was current, in other words, I had so many takeoffs and landings within a certain period of time. And let's say within 1 year, I had to have so many ones. We're going to go fly at night. And to do this, I have to have so many takeoff and full stop landings within a certain period of time. Well, let's say I'm just barely current. And in the time frame that's there, I can make it. But it's actually been 3 or 4 months since I have actually flown a plane, let alone landing it at night. I would be current, but I probably wouldn't be proficient. I could be legal, but that doesn't mean I'm safe. And so the goal of aviation is always to be proficient at something, to do it, to train, to do something over and over and over, where muscle memory, where everything that's going on that allows you to be able to not only be legal, but to be safe. And so this is really key because there's so much stuff that's going on. There's so many buttons and things. You've got air traffic control talking to you, and you're just trying not to die sometimes. All right, to keep the plane in the air. Aviate is the very first thing that you need to always do. Well, when it comes to our Christian media marketing, I think there are some differences of currency and proficiency as well. And I think what we're looking for is to have both of those. And so I want to share with you a little bit about currency and proficiency for your Christian media marketing. Let's look into some of this training together. All right. So when we're talking about currency and proficiency, when those two things come together, what we have is excellence. And so let's define and really look at specifically just a little bit here today what currency and proficiency in marketing, specifically Christian marketing, looks like. All right. So When you're being current in marketing, you're staying up to date with the latest tools, with the trends, with the audience behaviors of what people are doing for your context. Here's one thing that's important. There's a lot of information that's out there. In fact, one of the podcasts coming up is just places where I go to learn things. But you need to do what I constantly say, baptize. You need to be baptizing this information in your local context, in your goal, in your ministry goals. And so yes, whether a certain platform is skyrocketing in one location, if you can't legally use it where you're at, well, then what good is that? I mean, there might be some things we can learn from it and apply to other areas, but it's really important to be current in your context of the way that people are using social media where you are. I just went to a training, and as I was flying, it was a long flight from JFK Airport up in New York, and I was flying out. I'm watching people and I'm just watching their phone usage and they're just sitting there and they're just scrolling and they're going so fast. How do we get people to stop scrolling? How do we get them to pause? And this is stuff that I'm thinking about and looking at all of the time. And I'm watching people, I'm looking at ads many times just on social media to see what's happening. So with the changes that are taking place, I'm looking at the platform, I'm looking at algorithms changing, Instagram, YouTube, these changes that happen with the algorithms, with the platforms themselves at times. I'm looking for emerging trends. AI is going to be powerful. It's also the cool, sexy thing right now. And so it gets a lot of the press. And so it can be overblown, but I do think it's going to be unbelievably powerful and it's not going to go away. And so this is what's impacting a lot of ads, like I talked about in last week's episode, where there's some AI things coming in specifically on Meta that are making changes that sometimes I don't want. But we need to be looking at this and looking at the emerging trends that are taking place. We also just need to be looking at all of this and baptizing it in the idea of the culture where you're at, being culturally sensitive. So you're tailoring your campaigns to your local context and whatever religious events that your local context might be happening. So if you're in India, you're going to have specific, in fact, you're going to have a lot of specific holidays there. Really looking at what's going on, looking at language, looking at just so many local things, the cultural aspect. That's why it's important. If you go to our ad store, we literally have over 2.5 years worth of ads that you could run, but you need to always take those and adapt them to make sure that they work for your culture, for your local context. There's also analytics and data. So when you're using tools like Google Analytics 4, Matomo, or other ones, it's really important to stay current on that. That's a podcast that's coming up here real soon based upon questions that we're receiving from people. And then just the content format itself, optimizing for vertical video could be a good example of that. So maybe the platform that's popular where you're at, that's a big thing. Well, then make sure that you're being current in what's happening in your local context. And for so many places, mobile is the key thing. So when you're thinking through your marketing, it's important to be current what's happening in marketing out there. But that's not the only area that we need to be thinking about. When you're in your marketing, you also need to be proficient. So proficiency is where you get really good. This is like wisdom. You can have knowledge, but you need to have wisdom, thinking through how you're going to use something. So this shows itself in a couple key marketing areas. So audience is a key one. Your audience targeting. Yes, I know that AI is becoming more and more powerful because it has more data than we do. But really having a persona, who do you want to reach, is important. And then leveraging, maybe it's lookalike audiences, maybe just thinking through what your content looks like, who's in your content. All of these things are really important when it comes to your audience targeting. Your messaging itself. What are you saying? What kind of hooks are you using? That's a podcast coming up here probably in about a month that's already being planned and worked through of what kind of hooks do you use when you go fishing. Another one is just your long-term strategy itself. You have a ministry calendar. You have the local calendar of events. And so really thinking through how is the content that we're creating, how does that fit in our long-term strategy? Here's a key thing. When you're using content, you can reuse it a lot of times. People won't remember it. It's certain holidays. You can come back and use it over and over. This is why things like frequency, though I used to think it was super powerful, and important that we didn't hit a certain threshold, I'm beginning to see that sometimes it's not true. Like we can run something a lot longer, and there's research that's now showing that it's not as much of a negative. If it's a bad ad and it's just getting blocked all the time, that's one thing. But if it's doing well, let it run. So, what's your long term strategy? Campaign optimization, this comes back into frequency, other things, scaling, retargeting, all of these things are extremely important when it comes to being proficient in marketing. So you can know what the platforms are, but are you proficient in marketing in them? Even thinking through a cross-platform integration. And what can you do on either one? Let me give you an example. You can run first level, high level Google ads. In fact, I think it's really important to be doing pull ads. Take people to your website. And then you can retarget visitors to your website on Facebook on a different platform. And so this is how you can do cross-platform integration. You need to be then measuring everything. How's it working? What's the return on that investment? In fact, that's another, once again, podcast that I have planned, just talking about measurement itself. I think of it in many ways like aviation. The feedback that I'm getting from my instruments is telling me how I'm doing. Am I going in the right direction? So we need to be measuring, but we need to measure the right things. Calculating all of your return on your ad spend, all of these things are important. And I do not trust the algorithm to know the same metrics, to have the same economy of what I'm looking for as to what it would think would be important. And as you go through all of this, it's important to be ethical, to be Christian about what we're doing, even just stewardship itself. So we're trying to align our social media marketing with our Christian values. That's why it's important to me that we're not just putting out junk and we're not trying to put out clickbait and we're not just saying and raising money off of a button press saying, well, somebody clicked the button and said that they're now a Christian. That's incomplete, at least. It doesn't work. If your goal is to do big numbers for fundraising, then there's something wrong with your heart, okay? I think you need to really be checking where you are spiritually on this, because what God is calling us to do isn't to try to be flashy and show big numbers. It is to be consistently lifting up his son. And those metrics in some hard places won't be fantastic. And if you sit there and say, oh, we had 20,000 people that got saved last month, and the people on the ground are looking around going, well, where are they? There's a problem. There's a disconnect there. And so what I desire more than anything is to find people who are seeking, who the Spirit is calling and working in, and see them aligned and brought together with someone who can walk with them, lead them to faith in Christ, see them becoming a disciple who is reproducing and seeing other disciples, bringing other people into the kingdom, and seeing the full missionary task, entry to exit. All of that, leadership development, church formation, all of those things are extremely important because they're a part of my Christian value I am called to do. So this impacts my marketing, and I hope it will impact yours as well. So it's being current about what's going on, and it's about being proficient of what's going on. So grounding campaigns in strong marketing fundamentals, making sure you're adapting to the trends, the updates that you're seeing, and they seem to be happening really fast. If you combine these together, that's where you get excellence. That's where you get a balanced approach tailored to your mission-focused marketing. And so that's my hope for you, is that you will be both current and proficient in all you're doing. So those are some of my thoughts, at least, about being current, being proficient, about being excellent for the King and the kingdom. I hope it's a benefit to you. I hope it just challenges you to be staying out there, looking at the different resources, being current through all of that, but also be a person who's using these things. Be connecting dots, be touching things, be involved, be running ads, try out new things, experiment, fail at some things even. I think all of this helps us all to be better. And if you would, share what you're finding out with me. I would love to share that with the broader community as well out there. Our prayer is for you that you will keep moving forward, that God will bless your efforts. If this podcast and this video show is a benefit for you, subscribe, like it. It really does matter. And I do appreciate you telling others about it as well. So in all things, keep pressing forward. May the Lord bless your efforts to make his son known. If we can ever help you in any way, please reach out and let me know. Until next time, take care and God bless.